Twilight Princess is a Zelda game known for being very dungeon-heavy, especially compared to the previous two entries in the series, Majora's Mask and The Wind Waker.
And all 9 of these dungeons cover a vast majority of areas we've seen in past Zelda games like forest, fire, water, desert, snow, and sky.
And throughout our adventures, we're going to grab some of the best dungeon items in the entire Zelda series, like the spinner, double claw shot, and the ball and chain.
And we can't forget about the bosses. This game had our favorite boss in the whole series, Star-Lord, and had other soft bosses like Argo Rock and Blizzetta.
This is two guys playing Zelda Twilight Princess Dungeon Ranking.
God, do I hate this place right here. Coming in at number 9, the Palace of Twilight. This is obviously my least favorite dungeon in this game. It's one of my least favorite dungeons in all the Zelda series.
And I think the best word to describe this is just how bland it is.
Yes.
Everything from these gray walls, a horrible dungeon theme. You don't even get an item in this dungeon.
It's boring. Yeah, horrible color, no item whatsoever.
Yeah.
You got 2 different parts that are very similar. You do almost the exact same thing. It's just boring.
Now, I do kind of like the indoor-outdoor areas. You got that nice shadow waterfall right there.
Yes, I did like that. I also
nice
like that sword part, too.
Yeah, but other than that, man, this dungeon didn't have a lot to offer. Now, Zant, though, I will say, we get a little bit of cool backstory with him and a couple of nice cinematics.
Yes,
But even he's not that great of a fight.
And I like how I did like how he went back through all the areas of the game. There are some ones that they left out that I wish they wouldn't have, but I did kind of like revisiting all the areas that we had been to.
It's a nice throwback, I agree. Next on our countdown is the Forest Temple, and I will say, for being, even though we have it this low in our ranking, for being an opening dungeon in the game, it actually was not that bad at all.
No, it wasn't. But it really was a letdown from the Ocarina of Time. My favorite dungeon ever. I remember just coming in here, I was like, man, this place is going to be awesome. And it really just didn't deliver based on its name.
It really didn't, but it did have some nice things that was a nice change up. Like the upgraded boomerang that we get here is a nice change of pace.
I like the concept of the wind behind the boomerang, and also they use wind in this dungeon right here.
A very underrated theme used in Zelda games. And plus, using the monkeys to clear some of the pits was nice, even though freeing them did get a little old.
It's always nice when you see somebody in a dungeon and actually help you instead of escorting them.
Yeah. Now, what I loved about this room you fight the boss in, it was so similar to
Woodfall Temple.
Thank you.
Majora's Mask with the poisonous water. I agree.
It's just a great look and a nice little throwback to a previous game.
Wasn't a huge fan of the boss fight, but I mean, it was okay.
It was okay. Not the hardest.
I love the concept of a mansion as a dungeon.
Oh, yeah.
I just remember walking up to this place, I was like, wait a second, this is a dungeon? This looks like something else we'd be doing in this game.
It looks like somebody's house, right?
Yeah, well, it's a mansion, yeah. It would.
Yeah. but yeah, I just love the fact that, it just looks like an old rundown dungeon. I liked how they kind of combined snow and ice in this dungeon into a pretty nice effect, even though normally we hate those elements on their own.
Yeah. And also, I wasn't a really big fan of the weapon right here, the ball and chain. I liked how it was used throughout the rest of this dungeon, and I always like getting items that we've never had in a Zelda game.
And I will say, kind of going along with this being someone's house, I really love the dynamic between the two people who actually live here, Yeto and
Yetta. Now, I wasn't a huge fan of this boss fight. It had just an amazing theme to the boss fight.
Great.
It's probably my third favorite boss in this game.
It's just a great boss. The room you fight him in with like the mirror or the ice floor that you can see where he's at above you. Just a really, and like you said, the music, just a really fun boss fight. Now, as far as water temples go, I will say Lakebed Temple was a nice improvement over.
Yeah, I really like it. It's probably one of my favorite water temples. This one and Link Between Worlds, I'm actually a really big fan of, even though it comes in number 6 on our ranking.
And I think one thing that really stood out for both of us in this dungeon was just how great it looks with the more realistic graphics.
Agreed.
Just like the gold and blue looks so good together in this dungeon.
Yeah, the art style of this game made this dungeon just kind of pop. And also, I'm a big fan of the claw shot. A little bit weird you kind of get in a water temple, but I mean, I think they use it pretty well in here.
And I enjoyed changing opening up the flow of water a lot more than changing the actual water. It kind of felt a
little bit like Great Bay, but it was different from Great Bay.
Yeah. Plus, I will say, swimming around in this dungeon was so much easier than in previous Zelda games.
Now, the boss fight right here, I mean, it was a very epic-looking boss fight and a sink all the way down to him, but it really didn't deliver, in my opinion. It just wasn't as good as it could have been.
No, he was actually fairly easy for such an epic-looking boss.
Now, I really do like this dungeon, but I remember one thing about this place was with the lead up and the name of the dungeon, I was expecting more, but it still was a very good dungeon.
And I think one thing that really worked in its favor was that in such a dark game, this is such a very bright, clean-looking dungeon.
It kind of took a contrast in a darker game, and also it kind of reminded me a lot of the Tower of the Gods.
Yes.
From Wind Waker with the whole neon lights and the statues that you also use throughout this dungeon.
Oh man, and how fun it was to walk around with this big statue and smash
Well, we're guys. I mean, you give us a powerful hammer. I mean, we're going to love it. We are. Now, the scales right there, I actually did kind of like that too. A nice little neat concept right there.
There were some neat little touches thrown in there. And like I said, just combined with like the clean look and just smashing stuff with that statue, added to a pretty good dungeon.
Yeah, now the boss right here I think is kind of a ripoff, obviously from Ocarina of Time, Deku Tree.
Yeah.
I just don't think it really fit in this dungeon. It was out of place.
It didn't. Like, the room is darker than the entire rest of the dungeon. I mean, I like the concept of using the rod to smash him, but this whole ending part was a little silly too. Now, Hyrule Castle might be the best ending dungeon in any Zelda game so far.
I don't think there's might be to it. I think it is.
Just the whole concept of first of all, it's a beautiful looking castle, especially once you get inside.
It looks huge. I mean, it looks huge. It looks epic. It has the best theme, Hyrule Castle theme, I think, of any game behind Link to the Past. And just the whole inside right here just looks absolutely beautiful.
It's the exact opposite of the Palace of Twilight.
yes, it really is. Thank God it is too.
But like starting out in the courtyard where it's like storming and there's not even any music at all. It sets the mood to working your way all the way up here.
Getting darker and darker.
Yeah, and working your way up here to fight the 4 stages of Ganon.
Yeah.
Which was a great final boss fight.
I thought that was a fantastic boss fight. Just like I said, the 4 different stages, they're all a little bit different.
They are.
And like, you got like Dark Beast Scan right here. It's like a very huge one, whereas you had Zelda, a very small one right before.
Fighting Zelda was an interesting twist.
Yes, it really was. It really was.
Then the horseback.
Yeah, the horseback. It's probably my favorite part of the fight because this is the first time that we got to fight on horseback.
And then, of course, the final battle with Dark Lord Ganon.
Man versus man.
Yep, epic climax to a great game.
I'm not a big fan of fire dungeons, but I gotta admit, this fire dungeon is probably my favorite fire dungeon in the whole Zelda series. And just everything really came together here. The theme sounds awesome. I love the iron and wood walkways.
Oh, yeah.
And then also the item we get a little bit later on.
And I also do think that, like Lake Bed Temple, the graphics allow this fire and the smoke and everything in the air to really come to life.
How about the magnetic boots too?
Oh
the
my
magnetic
goodness.
boots, I mean, just using these being upside down, and you wouldn't really feel like they would be used in this dungeon.
But they find like 4 or 5 different ways, whether it was, like you said, upside down the ceiling, using it to cross these spinning platforms. They find
a mini boss right here,
They really put the iron boots to such good use.
Now, while I did like the arrow, or the bow and arrow, obviously, because it's a great weapon in every Zelda game, it kind of felt weird getting in this dungeon.
It did, and man, Fyrus, he wasn't necessarily the toughest boss, but he just looks awesome.
Yeah, he does. He does look awesome, but it's also only the second dungeon of the game, so you would expect him to be really hard, but man, he looks awesome right here.
Yes, he does. I'll be completely honest with you. City in the Sky did give us a run for number 1 in our rankings.
Well, didn't give me a run. I had it number 1 actually, but I mean, I love the whole outside area of this place. I mean, it's just you spend so much time outside, and we always love that.
And the fact that we're up in the sky, and you always have this sense of falling because there's nothing below you at all, and so much of this stuff.
And also, as the name implies, city, it kind of feels like this place used to be something. You can kind of see it looks a little bit futuristic, like the wind used to power this place. And since then, it's kind of moved on a little bit.
Man, getting the double claw shots to get your way through this city, such a fun dungeon item.
Love the double claw shots.
One of the few times we're okay with an upgrade to an existing item.
Yeah, that is a very good point right there. Now, Argo right here, one of my favorite boss fights in all of Zelda, not just this game. Just the whole outside arena was awesome.
Battling a dragon like this, the weather changes and turns into a thunderstorm. You get to ride its back.
Yeah, making your way to the top. Yeah, then get on top of its back right here.
It was just a very epic feeling fight to what was honestly an awesome dungeon.
I love the lead up to this dungeon, and I remember before I even got here, I was excited about coming into this place, and man, did it deliver.
It really did, and everything about that desert area getting here, the fact that this dungeon actually had a backstory.
Oh yes, with the prisoners and everything,
Yeah, it really made it feel like this is going to be an epic dungeon, and like you said, it delivered.
Yeah. And I love how they brought back the pose from the Forest Temple right there.
Yep.
A little bit different, didn't see in a desert temple, but it kind of threw like a little wrench in there that I really liked.
Yep, and I will say, any dungeon where you can say you're getting the
Spinners!
best item probably in the entire Zelda series, I mean, it's going to be up there.
It made this place kind of like a roller coaster to me in a way. And just, like you said, I absolutely love this weapon. And it just, oh my god, it made this place so awesome.
Riding these rails. And plus, we've kind of always been a fan of these desert-themed areas.
Now, Star-Lord, like our favorite boss fight in any Zelda series. I mean, this is a boss fight that I want to die on just to play again.
It was one of those times I remember just laughing maniacally the entire boss fight because of how awesome and epic it felt fighting him.
Now, you can see right here is actually our individual rankings. And it was kind of weird. We had 5 through 9 exactly the same.
Oh, yeah.
And then 4 through 1 is where it kind of got a little bit different.
Thankfully, it wasn't too hard to kind of sort out where we all thought they all fit in there. And we came to a pretty good consensus, which what we think is a pretty darn good Twilight Princess dungeon ranking.
Make sure you subscribe to our YouTube channel. We post Zelda videos weekly.
And follow us on Twitter, where we send out Zelda-related tweets every single day.
Now also make sure you check out the 2 videos below, Hick's Top 10 Dungeon Rankings on the left and our Skyward Sword Dungeon Ranking on the right.
And if you like those videos, click at the bottom of the screen to see our entire playlist of ranking videos.